How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bodacious Rant with Burn and Rye. Oh man, as we're nearing August, I feel like this is the first time in a while where we're starting to see some big anticipated movies. You know, we got some coming out at the end of the month, September with like Resident Evil, and then December is just, man, it's gonna be so stacked. I can't wait for that. But we'll talk about those when they get here. Let's talk about the present and the now, because that's what matters, to be in the moment. And as always, you know, I'm very conventional with movies, but, you know, Byrne, he's useful, you know, for me. Not only is he one of my brothers, but he's also a guy who helps expand my taste in movies, and this one's no exception to it.
It's good to know I'm useful in some sense.
Good. I hope you feel that way. I'm just kidding, Byrne. No, you're awesome no matter what, bro. But yeah, this is a movie, you know, I think is a very interesting one. Definitely a little on the artsy side. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just sometimes with like the super surreal or metaphorical movies, I do feel I feel a little slow on those sometimes, where I'm like, what did I just watch? But anyways, we're talking about the second movie I've seen from this director, Jane Schoenbrun. I hope I'm saying their name right. The first movie I ever saw for them was I saw The TV Glow, which was the A24 horror drama from 2 years ago. And now we are talking about another horror movie from this director, which is Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which is such a weird name for a camp. Directed by Jane Schoenbrun, starring... oh my god, what's the main actor's name again? I'm sorry. It was
Hannah Einbinder?
Hannah Einbinder, thank you. I know it's Einbinder, I just forgot the first name. Gillian Anderson, and... or Gillian Anderson, I'm sorry. And Jack Haven, which you've seen them before, and I saw The TV Glow, the most recent Bill and Ted's movie, and... I'm blanking on something else. It's fine, though. This is a spoiler-free review, just because it's out in theaters everywhere now. It was a very limited release recently. And so, yeah, if you guys happen to like the director, you liked I Saw the TV Glow, you just like tuning in to our channel, feel free to show your support with that. You know, click that like button, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, you know, subscribe just to keep joining us on this adventure and our discovery into films. So this one is a very interesting movie. It's very LGBTQIA plus focus, which is very interesting. Where Hannah Einbinder plays a young director who is, you know, picked to basically reboot a very popular horror franchise, and in doing so, she tracks down the original Scream Queen of that franchise to, you know, kind of get some inspiration and see what she could do with this franchise. And that's when there's a lot of self-discovery in that, in doing so. And I don't want to spoil it anymore because, you know, it actually is pretty integral to the plot if I keep going. So, yeah, like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot of this director's work. And even though I saw The TV Glow, I had some hopes for it. I was hoping to be more of like a horror in a way, or very more like a psychological drama, which in a lot of ways it was, because that one was Justice Smith's character with Jack Haven really just wrestling with his inside, like, you know, ward himself of what society wants him to be versus what he really truly feels on the inside. And this one is definitely very similar but different in a lot of ways. And this movie, I was like, I'm kind of on the fence about it, where I had some fun with it, given I did see it late at night, so I was super tired. But I feel like there's also some of the more surreal, metaphorical elements. I was like, am I misreading it? Am I overthinking it? Because I feel like there's a lot going on in this movie. But, Byrne, what did you think of this one? And I guess, without spoiling as best you can, what did you think your takeaway was from this movie?
Yeah, I mean, like, I do agree with you. I think this movie does have a lot going on here, and I think it's very thematically dense in a lot of the things that it's like trying to cover. And like you said, in doing so through, you know, the lens of someone from the LGBTQIA community, it's one that feels very almost like very personal for the director. And it seems like, I mean, that feels like that was the case as well with I Saw the TV Glow. You know, this feels like a very, you know, personal movie where it's like, you know, a lot of things are up to interpretation, but it feels like the director's kind of like the only one that knows what all of these different things mean, right? Like in more of the in terms of the more like out there aspects of the movie. But I think at the heart of it, what it gets down to is a lot of like really interesting stuff, and brings up a lot of really fun conversations and commentaries on things like, the horror genre, itself, and how, like the violence and the sexuality of those, like how they were depicted at the time, how we sort of view them now, in this modern lens, looking back at these like older properties, and how like certain things are like maybe not as acceptable now, but there's still the part of us that just like really likes elements of them, and it's kind of like one of those things where it feels like conflicting a little bit, and that paired with like, like the studios and what they're trying to do with horror movies nowadays. Like you said, Hannah Einbinder's character is just like this hotshot, like indie Sundance director that's been given the keys to this big franchise in this universe, which is again what we see a lot with more popular properties nowadays, and having to like over intellectualize the reasons of why we like enjoy these certain IP. We can't just go out there and just say, hey, I like, the blood and the killing and the sex and the stuff. We have to like say, oh, I like it for all these other elements. So that was a lot of fun in terms of like, dissecting it through like a film lens and through like a commentary lens. But I mean, I think at the heart of it, it's a very like human story, much like I saw the TV Glow. Where it's about like self-discovery, it's about like learning about yourself through your like creative process in this case. So that was a lot of fun, and I thought that Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson really worked well off of each other. Much like I saw the TV Glow, this movie kind of operates on its own like wavelength, where things are like weird and surreal, and characters like act in a way that normal people don't, and that leads to these like funny like weird like moments together, and in this world it feels like it works, like it feels like it's all part of this like singular vision, like the way that these characters are talking to each other. They're sort of like different little like mind like places that they go to, where it's like, is this really happening, is this just all in their head, and like all done through like the lens of like, this is kind of like a horror, like it's like it has the aesthetic of like an 80s like horror movie, like slasher movie, but with like a bubblegum filter on it, which adds like a really like fun surreal element to it. I don't know, there was just a lot of elements to this movie that I can see being like very much overwhelming, very like what is this movie trying to say, like it feels like it's like there's a lot going on here. But I think if you like focus on the core of it, it's a little bit of more of a relatable message when you're just kind of seeing these characters and their journey, and viewing everything else as sort of like the wrapping paper around that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like watching it. I just trying to pick up as much as I can, just because, like I said, this may not be my type of film, but with someone, I do always appreciate the messaging and the things that go into movies like this, especially like I saw the TV Glow. It didn't live up to my expectations, or it didn't have the hopes that I wanted it to be, but the story and the message behind it were amazing and very like I don't know about, and I don't know if I could necessarily relate just being cisgender and hetero and stuff like that. So, but I try and be respectful of it, and I think that's what we should all do when we watch movies like this. Always put yourself in that character's shoes, or trying to see what the creatives are trying to portray in this one.
But it's like even then, like you can relate to the aspect of maybe not like feeling like you match sort of society standards,
Yeah.
like, and again, that does feel very much like in play here in this movie
Oh,
too.
100%. I think there was a lot to be said in this movie. Like, that's why I was kind of like, is it talking about this? Am I missing something? But yeah, no, I think Hannah Einbinder and Gillian Anderson, they had such great chemistry, and the way they bounced off each other and some of their dialogue, and even just the scenes they have together. It really does spell out the main message of this one, and discovering yourself, and especially like at a young age, and like how they're easy to read in this story, I feel like, which is not a bad thing whatsoever. I love the aesthetics behind it. I think the director, they really did a great job of capturing that old 80s aesthetic, where you see like little burns from the film here and there, and like Burns said, like a bubblegum filter with it, where it looks very grainy like film, which I don't know if it was digital or film or not, but if it was digital, I think they got the aesthetic right, and just great seeing Jack Haven in it, even though they themselves didn't really have a line or anything in it. Their character and that character's story again also really added on to the whole message of this movie, and it was just a great. Also, at a simple standpoint, very superficial, it's just a great homage to like slasher films like Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff like that. Good commentary on those. Almost kind of plays around with the debate of like, are today's horror audiences too prudish to not want nudity and all that stuff in there, but we're fine with gore? Or is it okay to have it if it's done right? Like, there's some good stuff, and I'm very open to that debate, like, with Byrne or whoever else see the movie and stuff like that. Not necessarily like in a negative way, but I just want to see what other people's thoughts are with this one. But and I haven't really seen Gillian Anderson. I told Bernie when I watched it, I was like, why does Gillian Anderson look so different from Andor? And I'm like, nope, that was Genevieve O'Reilly, completely different actress, but also amazing in this one. And Hannah Einbinder, I think she killed it. I definitely want to see what else she's got for us. I hope it's not just a one and done for her. And even though, again, this one isn't my favorite whatsoever, I don't even think it'll be my top 10. I think it's still great filmmaking here. It's got some good messaging, and I'm very curious to see how the LGBTQIA community responds to a movie like this. Like, is it too mainstream, or does it hit on the nose? So for those of you in the comments, feel free to let us know, respectfully, of course. With all that being said, I'm going to give this one a hard 3 out of 5. I think it's definitely worth the watch if you kind of want a movie to, cook your brain a little bit, get a different perspective on life with certain things. And also if you kind of, you want something that tiptoes a little bit about horror, but then has some comedic elements to it, I think this one's on point for you. So it is playing everywhere, but it is limited very few showings just because it's a lot, and there's also going to be a lot more movies coming out in the coming weeks. So I would still recommend it for those who are a fan, especially if you're a fan of this director or their last movie, I Saw the TV Glow.
Yeah, and I think, getting the most out of this movie, you got to kind of know what you're getting, like, going into it. I think, much like you, I saw the TV Glow with very different expectations than what the movie ended up being, but like upon reflection and stuff, that movie works a lot more well than it did like while watching the movie. It's like one of those where it's like you digest it over time and you find a lot more things to appreciate about it. And that one really grew on me and has become one of my favorite movies from the last few years that I'd never want to see again, just because of for the people who've seen the movie, why. But yeah, I think this one doesn't go quite as far as that in terms of like the emotional impact for me. I think this is much more of a lighter story than that is, and I think that'll be a little bit more of a crowd pleaser on that end. But you definitely have to know that you're not coming into a traditional horror movie. This is more of like a deconstruction of the genre, again through a queer lens. And I think I thought the way that the movie balanced those elements was really well done. I liked how it used all the different tropes and the aesthetics of the 80s slasher movie and sort of refigured that into this this sort of like self-discovery story. And I thought it was really, really well done, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, for me, this one's going to be a 4 out of 5. It's not going to be to everyone's taste, but if you do find yourself liking these more cerebral, these more introspective stories, I think you're going to have a good time with this one. And I certainly did, because the two leads here are very just magnetic. You just like get sucked into every scene that they're in, and the dialogue between them and Jane Schoenbrun's directing here is one that I think does a good job with all the elements that are at play here. And yeah, I had a good time with
Yeah,
this.
I'd also have one of my favorite comedians, Sarah, I think Shermer. She's from SNL, and she's always hilarious in all the skits she's in that one. So whenever she's in like one of these movies or something, I'm like, oh great, that's another reason why I want to watch it. So yeah, 3 out of 5 from me, 4 out of 5 from Byrne. For those of you who happen to catch this movie, like whether there's limited or it's wide release, feel free to let us know in the comments what you thought. No spoilers, of course, just to love to get everyone's thoughts on this one. Like I said, we got a lot more stuff coming out this last month and then September, so feel free to check that stuff out with us. And as always, stay bodacious and just keep on ranting for us.
Absolutely, everybody. Be good, be safe, and as always, we'll catch y'all on the next one.